Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I am currently sat at the Supercharger in Edinburgh. It's the shortest day of the year, so 21st of December, and I'm on my way from my house up in northern Aberdeenshire down to Sheffield. It's time to go and see family and friends before Christmas. So I'm doing yet another Tesla road trip, and if you've been on the channel for a little while, you will have seen that these are fairly easy. Is today going to be? The big difference today, and it is a big difference, is wind. It is properly windy. There's been another storm blown its way in overnight, and without trying to sound a bit like Michael Fish, go and Google Michael Fish if you don't know who Michael Fish is, but it's been proper wind, and that obviously has quite a bad impact on energy use and efficiency in an EV. In the 164 miles that I've done to get here, I've actually burned 339 watt hours per mile, so 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That's awful for this car, but the conditions have been so bad that they've had to have warnings on the bridges for high winds, and you're seeing trucks swaying around. I've actually had to wander around trucks several times because they've been wandering across their lanes. Conditions are really poor, so that really doesn't help. I know my channel attracts quite a lot of people who hate EVs and drive petrol and diesel, especially really old petrol and diesel. I really appreciate you coming and bringing your ad revenue to me to help pay for mine, so you're helping to pay for the thing that you hate. But for you guys, you're probably thinking, well, if I was driving my car, I wouldn't be having any issues with the wind. And it is, of course, nonsense, because what we're talking about here is physics. When you've got wind blatting against the car and slowing it down, that increases air resistance, which means that you've got to expend more power in cutting through it. And it doesn't matter whether that power comes from an electric motor or from a petrol or diesel engine, you're burning more fuel. You don't pay any attention because you don't care, and that's absolutely fine. I never used to do when I was doing this trip on a diesel. I'd see my fuel consumption might be wee, but it's fine, you just fill up again. For this, I'm going to have to be a little bit more thoughtful. So I can't just drive in Sheffield on fumes and plug the thing in overnight. I'm actually down for a few days, so I can plug it in overnight the following night, but not tonight. So I still want to have some power left in the car. So I'm deliberately going to charge this car up more than I need for the trip. So what that's going to do is mean that my stops are a little bit longer than I would need. That's not because I'm making excuses, that's just called planning. Anyway, with the wind and the consumption as it is, I'm going to go the A1 route, and I'm just going to stick power in. If I go past the Supercharger and there's empty stalls, I'm just going to stick power in. It's just before Christmas, and that means there's going to be more people driving about here and there, obviously, because it just is. And we're going to see how we're going to get on. Anyway, I need to go and get a bit of food first. And yes, I'm eating because I'm hungry. Who doesn't eat when they're on a long trip? And you know, this is an 8-hour trip. Of course I'm going to eat. And yet people keep saying, oh, I never eat. Well, I went past McDonald's, and I am not going to McDonald's, but when I went past it, you're having to fight your way through the traffic to get off the roundabout to get down here. That's the level of popularity that Mackie D's has got. So let's not do that. Let's get some food, and then we'll have a think about what we're doing. Right, I've just dived in, gone to the loo, taken a picture of me next to this Tesla bot thing. Not entirely sure what that is or why, but whatever. So I also don't know how long I've been here, and it honestly doesn't matter. I'm not on a timer. I don't entirely care how long I've been here. I parked up, I've done a few video-y bits because that's kind of what I do for a hobby, talking to you lot. And then thrown some stuff in the bin. Does it matter how long it takes? Okay, I'm about to unplug, so we're on 80%. I've got a predicted range of 195 miles. I think 230 to Ferrybridge. So we will need a short zap and dash, either at Adderstone or Scotch Corner or somewhere. But a little bit of a dash, just to get us there. But that'll do. That's okay. And that's us away. I can't even say the wind has dropped, because it hasn't. I have had my hair blown around. You can't really see it on the camera, which is okay, but yeah, it's windy, windy, windy woo. We've just left the dual section of A1 east of Edinburgh, coming up on Tranent Nuclear Power Station, and the weather has cleared. The sky is a lot clearer than it was, and there's some sun off on my right hand side. The wind appears to have stopped swirling, and my efficiency has completely transformed versus what it was. So I had done what, is it 336, 338, something like that, watt hours per mile. I'm now on 245 after the stop, so I'm at 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour instead of 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That is a huge difference, and by the look of it, I actually could punch all the way through to Ferrybridge now without a stop. So we'll have a look and see if that actually feels doable. But Ferrybridge is another 190 or so miles, and on the 30-mile average, I've still got 214 left to go. So I've got a 24-mile buffer, which it's pretty accurate, guys. You know, the Tesla miles to go thing, it's not a guessometer like used to be in my old Nissan Leaf, and I know some other cars, it really is just a guess. This seems to be pretty accurate. It knows which way you're going. And at the moment, I'm going through the Tyne Tunnel, because if I can avoid Newcastle completely, then I'm going to do so. So if it still looks good, then I'm going through the tunnel, and that will be much better, because I hate that section of A1 past Newcastle. I hate the roadworks and the narrow lanes and all of that, and the tunnel is interesting. We should also have a talk about autopilot, because there has just been a big update with autopilot, which you might have heard about. It was publicised as Tesla recalls X million vehicles. Well, when they say recall, that's American regulator talk, because what Tesla did was an over-the-air update, and we get those on a almost weekly basis. So the idea that it's a recall the old-fashioned way is just laughable. And I know there are some people who've posted comments laughing, but guys, you're the people who look like morons, not us. So don't worry about it. Anyway, that update has made some changes to autopilot and the way that it functions. It seems fairly clear that some of our American friends, and anyone watching in America, hi, have not been using the system the way that it was intended. And I don't think this is the full self-driving version. I think this is just the generic standard autopilot as I've got. And what has happened is it's now using the camera inside the cabin to check what you're doing, and if you are not looking at the road, it will start shouting at you, and if you are not applying a little bit of tension to the steering wheel every minute or so, then it will shout at you. And it's got this 5 strikes and you're out thing, where basically if it has to intervene and tell you that you're not using autopilot properly 5 times, then it'll disable autopilot for a week. There's been a load of complaints on Facebook, and I do mean a load. There is frankly a bit of hysteria among some of the Tesla community about what they've done to autopilot, but I actually think it's better. So I didn't have any of those issues because I'm using it properly, but it actually seems to steer better on the roads, and the visualization is better than it was. It's a big update. So I actually think they've improved it, and I know a lot of people are going to say no they haven't, but they have for me. So I've got some more autopilot testing that I need to do. I need to take the thing cross country and do some twistier routes testing on camera. I've done it off camera, and I thought it was a revelation, to be honest. So that's what we're going to do.
But yeah, the people who are complaining, I'm not quite sure what they were expecting the thing to do, but to me, it works better than it did before. And don't forget that autopilot on a long trip like this just makes it so much more relaxing, because you have got the automation. You are still in control of the vehicle, but the automation is there so that you are working less hard than you would be otherwise. And that is a good thing. Trundling along the A1 south of Berwick, and we keep doing between 45 and 55 mile an hour. It's not just this truck in front, there's another one in front of that. There is no dual carriageway until you get to Alnwick, which is another 20 miles or so. So what I'm going to do, I could do with getting another drink, so I am going to dive into the supercharger at Adderstone on the way past, plug it in, get a drink, unplug it, and then carry on. There is plenty of power to get me down to Ferrybridge. I do not need to plug in at Adderstone, but I'm bored of sitting in this queue. So if I basically pause and let this progress down, then I will make much better progress. So, okay, shop done, big trucks, and how can I put it? This is Adderstone Supercharger, and it's broken. Basically, our big truck friends here have demolished this supercharger because two of them are covered, and there's a third one that is already basically broken. So look, we've got that's covered and broken. This one's still working, but you can see it's got holes in it. That one's broken. That one's broken. So there's not really many of them left, but I'm only getting 36 kilowatts, which is a complete waste of time. So I'm not quite sure what's happening to this site, but it isn't good enough. Anyway, a waste of time. Let's get going. That Adderstone site is still working, but only just. So 2 stalls knocked over and bagged over. A third one which is cracked open, and I assume a bit of rain will knock that one out. So that's 3 of the 6. And the other 3, well, the one I was on was doing 36 kilowatts, and that's half a battery, which had, okay, a little bit of preconditioning, but it should have been going quicker than that. The guy I had a very brief chat to as I walked past the broken one on the way into the shop, his wasn't really any quicker. So let's just remember that for next time. And all that's happened there is they've installed the Tombstone charger units, and there's no safety fence behind them, so trucks are literally reversing into the car park and knocking them over. Anyway, I've got 145 miles to run to Ferrybridge, and according to this I've got 162 miles of range. So providing that I take it gently, I will get there, and I'll get there with 8%, something like that, which is absolutely fine. My very worst was getting to Edinburgh one night on 1.5%, but again, it was reliable. It had said it was going to be around 2% for the last 100 miles of driving. So to arrive there having just dropped onto 2%, and then a couple of miles still to go, that was absolutely fine. So the Tesla mileage guide is pretty accurate, and that's quite helpful, really. Dropping now down towards the Tyne Tunnel. It's still a nice day. In fact, you can see the sun. I've actually deleted charging stops completely, and I know I've said in the past, oh, just let the car direct you. That's kind of easy mode. I'm trying to do this a little bit on advanced mode and think about, well, where am I going, what am I doing? So I don't just blindly follow the sat nav in any car, and I've had sat nav for 20 years. I'm not just going to blindly follow the sat nav. There's an element of which route am I taking, and in this case I was like, I am not going on the Newcastle Western bypass. I'm going to go through the tunnel. Here we are. It's now looking to route me off to basically go down the A1 rather than through Teesside, and it looks like the reason for that is because of traffic on the Tees flyover, and I did see a warning sign talking about high vehicles. So it might well be that we actually do that. We go down here through the tunnel and then cut back across onto the A1. That's absolutely fine. We can do that. Don't know yet. We'll have a think. In terms of power, it's saying I will get to Rotherham on a -4. Well, obviously I am planning on stopping, so the minus bit doesn't matter one little bit. But it does show that I've got bags of power to be able to get down to Ferrybridge, or it could stop me at Scotch Corner. I'll have a look. Basically, I think, as I said, I will. I'm expecting it to be busy, so if there's an opportunity to stop and it's free, then maybe it's worth jumping on. I've got to stop somewhere, so it's just a question of where. So we'll see how we go. In the meantime, it's got to be said, since this eastern bore of the Tyne Tunnel opened, I know it's been a while now, but the old queues you used to get on the old single bore, where this was two-way traffic, that used to take an eternity. Plus, of course, you had the toll booths. Now you just use an app and pay. I think it's by the end of tomorrow, so I will remember to pay. But other than that, this route is now really good. They've taken all of the bottlenecks out. I think there's one roundabout north of here, and then there's nothing now further south. Every roundabout is now bypassed with a flyover, so you really can get a bit of a wiggle on, which is great, because it does mean that you've got this route to be able to get the heck out of Dodge into Clearney Castle without much in the way of hassle. Oil tankers. I don't need any of that, do I? Wow, that's bright. We're going A690 through Hodenley Spring to cut from the A19 down to the A1. Traffic in Teesside looks gnarly, so we are curtailing the easterly route and heading back over towards the A1. Still on track just to make it down to Ferrybridge without any issues. Traffic's actually fairly light. This has been the interesting thing. I thought traffic might be a little bit busier, but it has been fairly light. Maybe it'll be worse on my way north on Saturday, which will be on the video after this one. Coming off the motorway to go into Ferrybridge, still showing 2 stalls free, which is, I only need 1. And it's a V3 site, which means that you get basically maximum power available regardless of how many are there. Theoretically, if you had 4 stalls pulling from the same charger box, because that's the way that the V3 ones work, if you had 4 cars all trying to pull as empty as I am, then it would need to throttle the speeds a little bit, theoretically. But you would probably have to be quite unlucky to get there and find that was the case. So I am expecting that I'm going to get 230 kilowatts charging speed plus, basically. That's what I'm expecting. We'll find out in a minute. So we go shunking over the slip road, and then basically we have to join the eastbound M62 for a few hundred yards, and then through a roundabout, and then into the service area. So I'm going to arrive on 3%, and I put 4% into the battery at Adderstone. So the Adderstone Zap and Dash was needed, but it turns out that the amount of power use after Edinburgh was so reduced that not a lot was needed, because at one point I was going to be well short. It was showing a range of, realistically, if I'd carried on 3 miles per kilowatt hour, of around 200 miles, and down to Ferrybridge was 230, something like that. So a very quick zap and dash at Adderstone got us here, and obviously we burned less power because, well, it's not been anything like as ludicrously windy, and that has got us down here just fine. You do have to slow down on your way into here because it's tight. And then just keeps sweeping on around. I'm assuming that the non-Tesla chargers are operational now, because they appeared to be, last time I was here, when was I last here? I don't know, 6 weeks back, something like that. They looked like they were almost ready, so I would imagine that those are running, because they used to just be, what was it, 2, maybe 3 of the old style chargers. Those are still there. Right, let's have a look. So somebody else has just gone and swung himself in. Ooh, that's the grid serve. Yeah, so they're the grid serve ones, and then the Tesla ones around here, and there's a spot straight away. So there's 2 spots actually. So let's just jump onto this one here on the end, because that's the best thing to do. I don't mind being on the one on the end. Somebody has to be, and they all work the same. And there it is. I had literally just plugged this thing in, and wow, we're only getting 134. That's actually a disappointment. I thought we would get quicker than that, like another 100 kilowatt hours quicker. Huh. Okay, well, anyway, it's fine. And it says 5 minutes. I'm going to take slightly longer than that. I've got a load of rubbish I need to clear out. I want a bit more power in the car before I get down to Rotherham. But yes, grid serve. We were talking about the new grid serve ones, and well, these ones all appear to be coned off still, but the ones on the other side, so not coned off, with the metal fence in front of them. The ones on the other side though, those are definitely all still working. So I've basically just done Edinburgh to Ferrybridge, and I needed a very brief top up. I've done that without needing any kind of top up at all previously, but that was in the summer, so it does show that range does get eaten up a little bit in the winter. But I wasn't that short, because I left Edinburgh on 80%. I could have added another 5% and not needed the Adderstone stop at all, so I just needed to put a little bit more in, really. There's one free. Good, because I'm not quite ready to go yet, I don't think. I'm only getting 107 or something, ridiculously low. I hope you can hear me over the wind. But yeah, I think I'm only getting like 107, which is... Oh no, I tell a lie. It has now sped up 114. What was it then? Now, okay, it is bouncing up and down like a bad one. Interesting. I mean, I'm on 34% and I'm getting 83. That's pretty poor. Okay, I'm doing this for science. I've just moved. So I was getting 81 and it dropped a little bit. So I've actually unplugged and moved on to a different one, and it's back up at 116. I did see a little bit more than that briefly. It's a bit odd. I mean, the site's busy, but it shouldn't be that busy. And this is a V3 site, so we should all be able to get more than that. So I'm going to sit here until I get to 50%, because that just gives me some flexibility over the next few days. And yes, this absolutely now is me sitting here watching the car charge, which isn't what I do normally. Occasionally, yes, this is definitely one of those where I am going to sit here a little bit longer, because this is the cheapest and most convenient option for me to charge the car for my use over the next few days, genuinely. Because I mean, that says 41p a kilowatt hour. That is significantly cheaper than I am going to get from any of the other public chargers in Sheffield. And interesting point, I have just plugged in onto that one as we got here. I moved it just before 4 o'clock. When you get to 4 o'clock, the price goes up from 41p a kilowatt hour to 55p a kilowatt hour. Now 55p a kilowatt hour, that's still good. There is a bit of a secret here, guys. And if I'm honest, the secret is this: because so many of you have bought cars and used my referral code, I have got a bucket load of points, and that means I don't pay for charging at the moment, because I have redeemed some of my referral points for miles. At least moving and unplugging has sped me up a little bit. I mean, it does keep pogoing up and down. So a guy has just come in an excitingly coloured Model Y, which he's had wrapped.
and this lovely turquoise colour. So he's just plugged in, and suddenly we've all dropped. So I was getting 120 then, and I'm now back down to 79. So I said I'd get to 50%. I've got a couple more, literally 2% more to go. So I'll be gone again in 2 minutes. Again, I don't know how long I've been here. I mean, I've actually, apart from clearing some rubbish out the car and then walking into the services and having a wee and then coming back again and talking to you lot, of course, on here, I haven't actually sat or wasting any time. So I have been busy, although to be fair, most people doing this kind of trip aren't YouTubing and therefore having to talk on camera like I am here. So that is, yeah, it's not a usual usage case. I accept that. Hello from Sheffield with spooky lighting. So I am now parked up in the city centre near my hotel. How has this trip been? This trip's been easy, despite the fact that it was ludicrously windy for a good while there. We've actually balanced that off against the wind then pushing us along for the second leg of this. So all in all, 430 miles, and I have burned 287 watt hours per mile, which is actually slightly less than the long-term average that I've had this winter, at least in the car. I mean, I say long-term average, it's nearly 4,000 miles, so it's longish. Some people do, you know, that in 6 months. I've done it in 8 weeks, something like that. Anyway, a fairly straightforward trip. What have we learned? Wind is a big thing. Wind really is a bad thing for efficiency, for burning more energy. You've got to plan for that if there's a storm blowing around, not just about traffic, but just you're going to burn more power. We also learned that not all of the superchargers deliver the speed that they're supposed to do. And yes, I had preconditioned the battery all the way while I was doing that. And the occasional zap and dash stop, as I had at Adderstone, that was really useful because I could actually have just stayed a little bit longer in Edinburgh, and that would have given me plenty of power to get down to Ferrybridge. But I didn't think of it at the time. Anyway, while we're thinking about things, there will be another video of the trip home, and the trip home is literally immediately before Christmas. So let's see how busy the chargers and things are in that one. If you want to watch that video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. Leave comments. Be nice to the YouTube algorithm. Give me a Christmas present of a like and a comment, because the algorithm will love that. And on that cheerful note, we'll see you next time on Just Get a Tesla.